2021 has been one of the worst years in recent memory to build your own gaming or workstation PC. And it's largely due in fact to GPU mining, the Ethereum gold rush, GPU shortage, price hikes, and of course a global pandemic. If you're looking to upgrade your current GPU or simply buy a brand new one for an all-new build, inventory at your local retailer has been extremely scarce, and that's putting it mildly. However, if you are lucky enough to find one, you better dig deep in your pockets and grab those credit cards, because you can expect to pay sometimes 2 and 3 times the manufacturer's suggested retail price. And the used market isn't much better. Cards that used to offer great price to performance for 1080p gaming, like the legendary GTX 1070 and AMD's RX 580 8GB, cost more now than they did on their original launch day back in 2016 and 17, making 2021 the worst year in a long time to build your own gaming or workstation PC. But what if I told you guys you didn't need a brand new flashy graphics card to play all your favorite games and build yourself a super powerful workstation PC? We're gonna put that theory to the test in today's video, as I built 3 PCs over the past 6 to 9 months for my buddy Ben and my 2 cousins, Nick and Adam, where everything is gonna be brand new, fresh out of the box. Brand new CPU, motherboard, SSDs, power supplies, and cases. But the one caveat is we're gonna be using some older graphics cards from the secondhand market that I still think offer some pretty great value as a stopgap until inventory becomes more readily available and the prices finally come back down to earth. If they ever do. Welcome back to Tech 215, everybody. I'm your host, Nick, and that's right, in today's episode, we got 3 brand new builds with 3 used graphics cards. All 3 builds are totally different. Each build is going to have a different CPU and a different GPU. Like their respected owners, will have their own unique look and style. Some builds might have better CPUs, while the graphics card inside isn't quite as powerful. And some might have more budget-oriented CPUs, but have better graphics cards. This is not an apples-to-apples comparison. We're gonna run some synthetic benchmarks and run some easy-to-play titles, some middle-of-the-road games, and a AAA title to see what PC performs the best, and also which one do you think looks the best. I'm leaving it up to you guys today in the comments field to vote on what PC you would rather have out of the 3. So with all that being said, let's take an in-depth look at build number 1, which is for my buddy Ben. Okay, so let's jump right into build number 1, and for that, we need to take a trip up north to Delaware County, PA, and see my buddy Ben. Now, Ben hit me up last October. He wanted in to the PC Master Race.
And with a budget of around $700 to $800, I got to work.
For our CPU, we decided on, in my opinion, probably the most popular mainstream CPU over the past 18 months, the Ryzen 5 3600. The Ryzen 5 3600 ranks 12th in CPU sales in 2021, according to Newegg.com, and it's 6 cores and 12 threads of pure Zen 2 goodness. You cannot go wrong with having this CPU at the heart and soul of your gaming rig in late 2021. We went dirt cheap with an MSI B450 Pro M2 Max motherboard, picked up 16 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance, 3200 megahertz memory, and an EVGA 600 watt white certified power supply, as I always do from EVGA's midweek madness.
For our boot drive, I got Ben a Western Digital SN730 256GB NVMe drive, and for our games library, I picked up a 1TB Samsung Evo 860.
Coming in with an average resale price of $215 and ranked 21st on the most recent Steam hardware survey is NVIDIA's GTX 970.
This card is easily one of the best ultra-budget GPUs on the secondhand market, along with NVIDIA's newer GTX 1060 6GB model.
For our case, we picked up the Cooler Master MB330L Micro ATX case, finally decked out with a 5-pack of Asia Horus FS 9001s with included 10-port hub and remote. And although the CPU does come with the Wraith Spire cooler, I gave Ben my Wraith Prism cooler from my Ryzen 7 3800X, since it's just collecting dust, to keep his R5 looking cool and keeping temperatures in check. So here's a quick hardware recap for Benny's build. Now let's check out build number 2. For our second new PC and used GPU, we had to travel to the city I grew up in, the city of brotherly love, to go see my cousin Adam.
So I'm Adam.
Now, Adam has been a straight-A student his entire life, and as a reward for graduating the 8th grade and getting a full ride to Roman Catholic High School, my aunt and uncle shelled out the cash for a brand new gaming rig. So we headed to Micro Center, and with a budget of around $1,000, we got to work. With lots of great choices to pick from, Adam decided on the i5 11400 6-core 12-threaded CPU, which is one of the best budget CPUs on the market right now. The 11400 is ranked at number 11 on Newegg's top-selling CPUs of 2021 and comes in right now at around $189. It's Intel's follow-up to the highly coveted i5 10400, and although very similar, one of the biggest changes is the addition of PCI Express 4.0 compatibility. And although the CPU is locked and can't be overclocked, we went with the ASRock Z590 Phantom Gaming motherboard. Now, this seems to always be frowned upon, and I 100% understand that theory, but I don't always follow that rule, as I feel sometimes having a motherboard that is more feature-rich is worth the extra cash, and it also leaves the possibility to upgrade to a K-series CPU down the road. Adam also picked up a 16GB kit of Corsair Vengeance RGB in white, clocked at 3200 MHz, which we can overclock now that we have a Z-series board, so it's not always a waste mixing a locked CPU with a Z-series board.
For his boot drive, we went with an absolutely blazing fast Samsung 980 Pro 1TB. This drive is an absolute beast, taking advantage of PCI Express 4.0, crazy fast boot ups, 7,500 megabytes per second reads and 7,000 megabytes per second writes, 1 gigabyte of DRAM cache, one of the best drives money can buy.
We went a little beefier with the PSU and picked up an EVGA 750-watt bronze semi-modular PSU and put it in the beautiful white Corsair 220T RGB case. The 220T is a full-sized ATX case that has plenty of room for an AIO or custom water cooling. Keeping the Corsair theme going, we also picked up a 3-pack of white LED AF120s for the top and rear exhaust, and a set of Formula Mod blue, black, and gray cable extensions. Now for our GPU, we went Team Red and first ballot Hall of Famer, the RX 570 4GB. The RX 570 ranks 18th in terms of popularity on the latest Steam hardware survey and has an average selling price on eBay right now for $242. And it's obvious that this card can still rip and run, most times being on the minimum requirements list for some of the latest and greatest AAA titles. Of all 3 builds, I think this might be my favorite of the group.
It's just an all-around great PC, looks fantastic, and can run games, stream, and handle 1080p video editing with no problem.
Now, for the final build, all we had to do was travel a mile down the road in the heart of South Philly and pay my cousin Nick a visit.
Hi, my name is Nick. I'm cousins with Nick. It's kind of funny.
Now, both Ben and Nick went with a 6-core CPU, but here's where the trend breaks and Nick clearly has the upper hand.
Nick decided on the Ryzen 7 3800X. It has 8 cores and 16 threads and can handle just about any task you throw at it. Definitely the most powerful CPU in today's video.
Nick went with one of the best all-around and most popular AM4 boards, the MSI B450 Tomahawk Max 2.
For memory, Nick also went with a 16GB kit of Corsair Vengeance LPX, clocked at 3600 MHz to get the most out of his Ryzen 7 3800X.
The drive, we went with an absolutely blazingly fast Samsung Evo 980 1TB NVMe drive. But unlike Adam and Ben, Nick wanted a beefier cooler and decided liquid cooling over air was more his style. So we picked up the ID Cooling 240mm AIO in white. It does look smooth and keeps our CPU temps cool. But nothing on this build is more smooth than the case Nick picked out. The beautiful and breeze to build in Leon Lee Land Cool 2. This full-size ATX case is massive inside and also included 3 fully controllable RGB fans in the front. It's got some of the smartest features I've seen in a case, and it just looks absolutely beautiful.
For some extra bling, we added some lime green cables from Formula Mod and a 5-pack of the Asia Horus FS 9002s, but in white. And since the budget was getting tight, I had just the answer. Around this time last year, I picked up a GTX 780 Founders Edition off eBay for 75 bucks. If the GTX 750 Ti could still swing it, why wouldn't this once flagship powerhouse GTX 780 not be able to as well? Right now on eBay, the average selling price is $117, which makes it a decent card for budget gaming. So here's the final build recap. Now's the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's run those benchmarks. In Cinebench R23, Nick's Ryzen 7 3800X crushed it, scoring an absolutely monstrous 12,322 in multi-core, but in single-core, the Intel i5-11400 actually took home the gold by a small margin with a score of 1390 to the R7's 1325, and the R5 finished in last with a very respectable 1231. 3D Mark Firestrike is up next, and in terms of graphics score, the GTX 970 took home the highest score here with a 12,402, edging out the RX 570's 11,595 and smashing the GTX 780's 9,338. While the Ryzen 7 had the best physics score of 21,226, the two 6 cores were 3,000 points behind in the high 18,000s, but overall the R5 GTX 970 combo took home the combined score of 4,561, with the i5 scoring 4,451 and the R7 GTX 780 combo in last with a score of 3,902. Now on the games, and our first easy-to-play game, Fortnite at 1080p high settings, saw the i5-11400 and RX 570 combo have the highest average FPS at 94, just beating out the R5 GTX 970 combo at 88 average FPS, and left in the absolute dust is the Ryzen 7 3800X GTX 980 combo with an average FPS of just 55. Now onto a medium hard to play game and a highly optimized title, Doom Eternal. At 1080p high settings, the 11400 RX 570 combo won by a wide margin, averaging 101 FPS, while the R5 970 combo racked up a decent 83 FPS, and due to the lack of VRAM, the R7 980 combo really suffered here, only scoring an average FPS of 43. Only having 3 gigs of VRAM is really hurting the GTX 780. And finally, onto the hardest game to play, Red Dead Redemption 2, where at 1080p high settings, the R5 3600 GTX 970 combo and i5-11400 RX 570 combo would end up in a dead draw at 55 FPS, while the 8-core Ryzen 7 and GTX 980 struggled to keep up with only 26 FPS, making it more of a last-gen console experience, almost hitting that 30 FPS mark.
Alright guys, so that about does it for me today, but I'd like to close with a few points, and it really goes to show that in 2021, it was a really rough year. Graphics card prices were through the roof, and I mean, to get your hands on something brand new, it just cost crazy amounts of money. Now, I do want to say that the availability of cards has gotten a lot better. You can, in fact, find a brand new RTX 3060, for example, like the one right behind me. That card costs $750. Now, if you guys already have a graphics card, something like GTX 970, RX 570, RX 580, even a GTX 1060 or 1050 Ti, those cards still will get the job done, especially in easier to play games like Fortnite, CSGO, Dota 2, and they are some of the most popular PC games that are out right now. The new line of graphics cards, and I'm talking Ampere and Turing and AMD's 5000 and 6000 series RX cards, they're fantastic cards, but they are meant for super high-end AAA games, or if you're playing easier to play games, they're meant for high refresh rate monitors and getting a ton of frames for you competitive gamers out there. But you don't necessarily need a card like that to play your favorite PC games. That's why I highly suggest, if you just want a cheap card right now, just to hold you over until you can go out and get that RTX 3060, I would go with something like the GTX 970 or a GTX 1060 6GB, because they're actually affordable and they're still fantastic cards for 1080p gaming. Now, if you're more interested in building something like a workstation PC, something to edit video, do music, honestly, the CPU, the memory, and the SSDs are the most important part when building a video editing machine. The graphics card is definitely a plus, but the graphics card honestly only matters when you're rendering clips and exporting. It really does accelerate the speed of the renders and the exports, but with scrubbing, playback, all that stuff is done through the CPU, the memory, and the SSDs. But that is all the time we have for today, guys. If you like today's video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps YouTube let you know that you're enjoying my videos. I want to hear from you guys. Which build did you like best? If you could pick what PC you would take of all three, which one would you take? And also be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified the second I put out a new video. You can follow me on Instagram at tech_215_, where I'm constantly posting things about new hardware I buy and updates to the channel. If you guys have any questions or concerns, or just feel like saying something about the video, leave it down below. I guarantee you I will get back to you. That is all the time we have for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace! You like the new setup?
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
Alright, so we upgraded you to a GTX 970 from a GTX